in America, many of us still believe in the American dream. But why are we still not happy? Why are we struggling to own our own home, to find a job? Do we still have faith that our government representatives have a heart? And do they care about the people who actually put them into office? Join us as we sit one-on-one with America's congresspeople and ask the questions that will reveal what is at the heart and soul of the people who decide our lives. Hi, I'm Sister Jenna. Let's do Soul Talk. Hi everyone, and welcome to Soul Talk. I'm Sister Jenna, and we have the fortune of being with Congressman Tony Cárdenas, who will be joining us and talking about some incredible things that he's been doing on the Hill. Congressman Tony Cárdenas. Today he's the first Latino elected to represent the San Fernando Valley in California. He currently sits on the House of Representative Natural Resources and Budget and Oversight and Government Reform. He founded the bipartisan Congressional Student Athlete Protection Caucus and the bipartisan Crime Prevention and Youth Development Caucus. As you know, I'm very passionate about finding politicians and leaders in this great country to get to the heart of the matter, but to also showcase their hearts to the public. One of the things we tend to forget is that when we're in a position of power, we're always compromised by our truth and value systems. But there are some that have the capacity of standing strong or standing very quietly. Today, when I came into his office, there was a group of protesters. You might be even able to hear them next door to his other colleague's office, is protesting about immigration reform. One of the things I came to find out is that they didn't even realize that the congressperson that they're there protesting actually said they were going to support them and help them. So, I think it's so important for our nation to really become a little bit more invested in understanding the work behind the walls on the Hill. So one of the things I came to realize about the congressman is that he and Congressman Tim Ryan actually came together and started to establish this Quiet Caucus. And what the Quiet Caucus does, it invites many members around this particular incredible building to come into a room to learn a little bit more about meditation or to be a little bit more reflective on their journey. Whereas Congressman Tim Ryan, who is also in the show, follows a more free-flowing form of meditation. Congressman Tony Cárdenas actually does TM, Transcendental Meditation, and I'm going to find out if he's going to give me his mantra, because I'm really looking for one here. And, again, I think it's just so important for us to be aware that you can run a country, a district, a family, your life, and you can still be reflective, mindful, and caring. One of the main reasons why I think we're really initiating a conversation about introspection and reflection is that if we're not clear about who we are, will we know where we're going as a person or even as a nation? So I'd like to welcome the Congressman and thank you so much for joining the Soul Talk conversation.
For this opportunity.
Well, I'm going to get right in there, because as you know, I'm really passionate about how we're going to increase this conversation in this country where we're thinking a little bit higher and becoming more effective. What's at the root cause of your story as to what's deep and what's really important for you? How did you begin your spiritual journey or your journey of reflection?
Well, ever since I was a little boy, I always wondered why I was going to church and why I had to stand up and kneel down, etc. I was raised Catholic, and as I got older and got into college, I started to reflect and think that, well, maybe it should be my choice. Maybe it should be up to me as to what I do spiritually and what religion I may or may not follow. And then I stopped going to church, and then met my wife Norma, and decided to go to a Christian church right there in the San Fernando Valley. I enjoyed that. I thought it was more of an opportunity to connect, and the language that they were using and the way that they were talking about our purposes and what to reflect on and what to believe in. I consider myself a Christian, yet at the same time spiritual as well, as my wife and I both meditate, and we try to encourage our children to understand that they need to be good people and find themselves in that way. And yet at the same time, it doesn't have to be a particular religion that guides you. I think that guidance comes from within, and having assistance or guidance from other people who are conscious and aware is always a good thing. So that's just been my journey when it comes to spirituality, just realizing that, you know, who I am comes from within me, and bringing that out, and bringing the good parts out, and expressing it and making it a part of my everyday life, whether I'm with my wife and kids, or whether I'm speaking on the floor of Congress or working on legislation. It's about making sure that I'm mindful of what it is that I'm doing at the moment and where it's coming from.
That's beautiful. You know, there's a whole genre of folks in this country. They're called cultural creatives. I'm not quite sure if you're aware of them. And they're into transitional thinking. I think right now the numbers are about over 50 million of them that exist. And they're into reflection. They're into seeing how we can raise the level of awareness in individuals. And sometimes it takes an event to make us move in that direction. Was there an event that made you choose meditation as an important tool for your life?
Well, it was, I'm not sure it was as much an event as it was an awareness that I have a very, very stressful job, or can be stressful if I allow it to be. If now I'm not mindful of the fact that, you know, I go home and I think everything's fine, and yet my wife says, "What's wrong?" Well, obviously she's asking me that because what she sees or feels from me is that, you know, I have this intensity about me, and then when we start to talk, I start to realize that I'm probably carrying something with me from earlier that day that was very intense, and something that I do care about, or something that upset me, etc. So I wanted to find something that could help me be more balanced, because I do believe that stress kills, and I didn't want that to happen to me, and more importantly, I didn't want to be that kind of person. I didn't want to be the kind of person that walks around being stressful, the kind of person who acts or reacts from that space. So I looked for meditation opportunities, and one particular class, one of my staffers and I took, once a week we would go and meditate, staying perfectly still. You can't move. If a fly lands on you or something, you have to ignore it. And one thing that was surprising was that by the end of the class, although none of us could believe it, the teacher said, "How long did you think we meditated?" It was on the last day. And we're saying 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And because we gradually went up. And she goes, "That was 45 minutes. And we were all amazed that we did it. But to be honest with you, it was more of getting through it for me. So that didn't work for me. And then I continued to look, and then I found the David Lynch Foundation that works with veterans and helps them, and with children, and especially poor children in poor communities. And I liked what I heard, and I went and I learned how to do transcendental meditation. They gave me my mantra, of which I don't share with anybody, because they told me...
Oh, come on, I will tell you, I'm a sister.
They told me it's best to keep it to yourself, because everybody's mantra is different. And so I do that, and I try my best to do it at least twice a day for 20 minutes. And it does help me stay grounded. It does help me reflect better, and it really gets me in a better place, so that the day is a much better day.
Now, what's to me was an eye-opener was that you and Congressman Tim Ryan decided to come together and create what's called a quiet caucus on the Hill, which invites members if they'd like to come in and do particular reflection or meditations, as well as the staff. Now, I believe this is very important, and I'd like to hear more about the Quiet Caucus. And I'd like us to really talk about what are your thoughts where meditation or reflection is concerned in the way that we can shape our policies, our health agendas, education issues, all of these sort of guidelines or rules that we're shaping in the country now. If leaders were to be a little bit more reflective, would our policies change?
Well, Tim Ryan and I came together through a friend of mine who had met both of us. This friend, Michael, had worked for me. We actually learned TM together, and we're very, very close friends. And Michael used to work for me when I was on the City Council of Los Angeles, and he was my person on juvenile justice reform, which is the #1 issue that I work on, which has to do with restorative justice and things of that nature. So Tim Ryan and I met in Los Angeles when he was visiting Los Angeles, and we hit it off and became fast friends. And in that one meeting, we decided to start the Quiet Caucus. And every Monday, usually Monday, on the first day that we're back for legislating, we try to get together in a quiet space that we actually have. It's a little chapel here in the Capitol, literally inside the dome, where we get together with any of our colleagues who'd like to join us and do a half hour of quiet time. And everybody can do whatever they want. Some people can pray, some people can meditate. As long as they do it quietly, they're welcome to be part of our group. And the purpose of it is to help us start the week in a very much better way, coming from a better place. And the idea is that hopefully over the years we'll grow it to the point where we'll have more and more and more people join, so that we have a better synergy and a better connectedness with more of our colleagues than perhaps we would otherwise. So that's the purpose. So it's for us to start the week from a much better place, and start it off with meditation and some quiet time.
That's beautiful. And it's important for me to share a little story about Mahatma Gandhi, which I found out much later on from my grandfather. A lot of folks are not even aware of the root of his power, actually. Many people aren't aware that early in the morning, Mahatma Gandhi would actually wake up and meditate on his interpretation of God, and would continue to keep looking at how he would see a liberated India. And so for 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour, from 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, Gandhi just kept doing his meditation and prayer, which was creating an inner strength in him as a vibration in his character. So whenever he went out and spoke, it wasn't just the words that touched people, but it was the vibration of peace that he had attained for himself that was beginning to give people the strength to stand up against what was wrong. And so I think that when members of Congress are actually doing that for themselves, I think it's a very hopeful sign in the nation, because I'm into continuity, not ending. And so if you've got a bunch of leaders creating strength in them, you've got continuity. So let's roll over to this whole concept of how that practice of reflection shapes our policies of today. In what way do you see them making them a little bit more universal for not only Americans, but for the whole world in general?
Well, one of the things that comes to mind as you just described Gandhi and the energy that he brought and what he practiced on a daily basis so that he could do a better job of his daily effort of trying to change a country, and eventually, to me, he actually impacted the world. What comes to mind is when American politicians are on the stump, when they're actually running for office. It's very, very rare to hear somebody say that if you elect me, I'm going to be compassionate. Usually they say, if you elect me, I'm going to be tough. And that's one of the things that I hope that we can actually change in this country, to realize that making policies in an angry way, making policies from a vantage point where you're upset, is not the right way to do anything. And it's really important for us to realize that what we bring with us isn't just words. As you mentioned, as Gandhi did, he realized the energy that he brought was as impactful, if not more impactful, than his words. I'm hoping that we can get to a place in this country, the powerful country that we do have. More people on this planet are either dreading what Congress decides to do and the President of the United States, or they're hopeful that we'll do things that will impact them in a good way. And to me, it's unfortunate that not enough of us in Congress actually try our best to make sure that we're carrying the right kind of energy with us when we're making policy, when we're speaking, when we're interacting with others. And that's the Congress that I'd like to see going forward, a Congress that is more compassionate, a Congress that is not embarrassed to use that word, a Congress that is actually more loving and caring, a Congress that when you see 50,000 children come to our borders, we don't think of insecurities of how we can't handle it or that we're overwhelmed. We need to be the kind of Congress and the kind of country that says, you know what, we need to take a deep breath and realize, why did they come to us? Why are they here? And what good can we make of this? Rather than just focusing on the negative aspect of it is, how much money is it going to cost to take care of these children? What is it going to take to be able to stop this flow? Well, what's important is that we need to look at the root causes of things. And when we're reacting in anger or we're just being reactionary, we're never looking at the root cause. We're just being insecure and looking at the result that's before us. And it's deeper than that. And I would like to see a Congress that is much more reflective, a Congress that is by person, by person, by person, much more reflective, much more compassionate, much more loving, a lot less angry, and a Congress where we see that the key words that we use when we're running for office is compassion, is love, is caring, is the kind of things that we actually say we stand for as a country. So to me, it takes, as Gandhi proved, one person at a time can make the difference. And it can create the kind of energy and a difference that will change a country or change the world.
It feels like, after hearing you, as if you're going to be initiating for the next session of Congress. The title is A Compassionate Congress. We listen, just give us some time. You know,
yeah,
it's just like, you know, really. Sure. Yeah, really, because, you know, where there's some thinkers that are on another side of the fence, they tend to go, that's too idealistic, that's too fluffy. But my question to them over and over again, but you're losing something here. Sure. So that might be your balancing component that you're missing, and what's wrong with it? Is this all about consciousness? Is this all about the ability for people to think outside of their realm, of their little comfort zones, outside of the box? And if I were to ask you, what's your definition of consciousness, what would you say?
My definition of consciousness is to be reflective and patient, and to learn how to have faith, or a more common word is trust. Trust that it's going to be okay. Trust that you can handle it. Trust that you'll make a difference in a good way, etc. Those kinds of things. So consciousness to me is I think of what's inside of me. I think of what comes out of me when I think of consciousness. And that's why I think that personally I've gravitated away from formal religions and gravitated more toward what can I do to be better. And again, one of my closest friends is my Christian pastor. I love him very much. He is a person who, if you look at him on the face of it, you would think that he doesn't have a compassion for immigrants. But he perhaps has more compassion for immigrants than anybody I've ever met. And yet at the same time, he was born in the United States of America. He's a full-blooded American, as you will. But yet at the same time, he is willing to do everything and anything to fight for a cause for human beings so that they can have dignity, so that they can get respect, so they can be appreciated and loved and welcomed, rather than just despised or spoken ill of or what have you. So consciousness to me is seeing that in a person, to see that exude out of a person. And I just hope and pray that every single day I can be that kind of example.
That's beautiful. What matters to you the most, Congressman?
I think about my family every day. Like when I'm up here, they're not here. I pray for them. I wish for them the best. I hope that they're happy and that they're safe and that they're growing in a good way. I think about that every day. And at the same time, I think about, what am I doing here? I'm a United States Congressman. Am I making a difference? Not only am I making a difference, what can I do to help others reflect and see if they can make more of a difference, and if they can bring the better side of them out in their work and what they do, what we do. Those are the things that I think about every day, and those are the kinds of things that I hope that every day that goes by, every year that goes by, that if anybody reflects on me, they think of those kinds of things.
Beautiful. You know, I want to emphasize that this next question has nothing to do with politics. And even for our viewers that are watching this has nothing to do with defending or supporting or not supporting who you are and what you are. Because my understanding of the energy of God is this energy that belongs to everyone. And whether you believe in it or not, it's a personal issue, and no one should at all attack anyone for their views in this very private and personal relationship. And why I ask this question is because I'm still trying to get to the core of how are we connected to this source that seems to be the uniting force of consciousness, and why is it that there are so many different interpretations of this force. And basically, I'd like to ask you, what is your definition of this divine energy, God?
Well, I think of God as divine energy. When I think of God, I don't see a particular face. I don't see a particular body figure. I think of God as energy, and to me, God is strong and present when individuals are being good, doing good, bringing the best out in themselves. And the best example I can use is, I think that there was someone who was on this earth in the flesh who perhaps understood that, probably as well as anybody to ever walk this earth, and that's Jesus Christ. I think of Jesus Christ as the a physical embodiment of that, and everything that I read about him or understand about what he was someone who exuded that at all times. For someone to be able to, with very few words, save the life of someone that they were going to stone. And remember, if you ever read that passage, you'll realize that he did not pick up a stone himself and threaten anybody. He did not scream. He did not point a finger or say that that people were going to be damned or what have you. He just mustered up a few words to help everybody in that moment reflect on themselves first and foremost, and then so that they can individually decide then what were they going to do.
I like that.
Yeah, so that to me, that's a perfect example of someone to be able to, because you have to remember, in that point in time, and even to this day in some parts of this world, people think that it's okay to do exactly that it's justified. And they don't even have to question it, and they don't even have to hesitate, and they do it. And they do it to this day, and it's a sad thing. But to think that back then, a person who is who he was when he was here had that kind of strength and purpose and ability to be able to thwart such a thing in that very moment is very powerful.
It is, and that's where I always go back to one of the things that I think many religions need, leaders or practitioners or what have you, is an experience of that energy. Because even if you go back to Christ or Buddha or whoever, it's clear to me that they were experiencing that energy, and they were living their lives from the experience of that energy. And so how do we begin to mobilize that experience for the world that we're in right now, because it's so vital?
Yes, and one of the things that I think it's really sad is that some people, for example, in the business of politics, some people consider themselves, I consider them climbers. And what they do is they climb from one title to the next, to the next, to the next. In my opinion, some people are focusing on the title and the power that they hope or think it would bring, when everything that they have, they already have, with or without that title. And it's really sad that some people give it up to people with titles way too much. And I don't think that's healthy. I think as individuals, whether we're voters or constituents or what have you, we shouldn't be automatically giving something up to somebody just because they have a certain title. What we should be doing is looking to that person and helping to challenge them to be the best person that they can be, so they can be that kind of representative that is compassionate, that is caring, that is someone who actually has very just results from their everyday work. And that, to me, is a leader. The title doesn't make you a leader. Absolutely. I believe it's who you are and what you do. And what you do determines who you really are.
Yeah, it's like at the end of the game is the content of your character, that comes out of you.
And you mentioned Mahatma Gandhi, and every time I think of the people that I appreciate the most for what they've contributed to mankind and to this world, I don't think of presidents. I don't think of prime ministers or kings or queens. I think of Mahatma Gandhi. I think of Martin Luther King. I think of Cesar Chavez. People who, when you look at at the pinnacle of their movement and what they brought themselves to do, it wasn't about them. It was about a bigger picture. It was about the bigger community. And I don't even want to necessarily use the word sacrifice. It was just what they did. Yeah. I don't think that they would say it's a sacrifice. Neither one of them would say it was a sacrifice. I think that if you were to be able to talk to them today, they would say, no, it wasn't a sacrifice. It was a calling. It was a purpose. It's who I was. It's just what I chose to do, and I would do it all over again.
It's just who they were. Well, let's move on to our final question of the conversation. America and its role in the world. When you come into the office every morning, and you even go to your other area in your 29th district, back to California, what is that perfect vision that you hold for this country? Like, every little thing that you choose to do, you know it's adding the ripple towards this vision that I think we all try to come into to put together. So, your perfect vision of America is?
A secure America in its mindfulness, not an insecure America. A secure America and understanding that we are very blessed with tremendous resources as a country. We have a spirit overall about us in this country that we are in fact very giving. We have a spirit about ourselves that we like to come to the rescue, and we do it in mass, and we do it in a very, very beautiful way sometimes. And sometimes we have an America that, in my opinion, is just not itself. When it attacks people for what they look like, it attacks people because of they weren't born here or what have you. And to me, that is not the true spirit of what America stands for and who we really are as a people. So I would love to see America start to realize and reflect and understand that we are more powerful when we're giving. We're more powerful when we're understanding. We're more powerful when we're compassionate. And we're much, much more powerful when we're not pointing a weapon at someone. We're much, much more powerful when we're using who we are as good people to heal the world, to help heal ourselves, and just to be a better place and a better influence on the entire planet.
That's beautiful. You know, there's a saying that peace is not really passive, it's actually quite powerful. When you look at a lake and it's still, and you could see a reflection in it, it's like you can get to the depths of it. But if it's disturbed, then it doesn't seem as powerful as it is when it's still. Congressman Tony Cárdenas, thank you so much for your wisdom, for the work that you're doing on the Hill. And I know that you were elected one of the 50 most beautiful members of Congress. So I'm very honored to be with you, and I'm glad that I'm a sister. Yes. But hey, I want to thank you for just your heart. You show up in a very genuine way. And your areas and issues in immigration and all these other areas, or animal cruelty, I know is a big thing that you've worked on. And you are working with juvenile delinquents and many other things here. The fact that you're bringing in contemplation or reflection speak volumes that you are a man of honor and meaning. And we would like to thank you for that. And thanks for serving the country.
Yes, you're welcome, and thank you for this opportunity to share with you and for you to share with me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us for another episode of Soul Talk. We just had the fortune of sitting with Congressman Tony Cárdenas, who's talked about God, consciousness, his vision for a perfect America. One thing that stood out for me, your consciousness comes from inside of you, not from the outside. Thank you for tuning in. Take care.